Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gourmet Guide to Dynamics 365 licensing session at Stoneridge Connect. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I hope you guys are excited as I am, to talk about two of my favorite topics. The first one being licensing, and the second one being food. I think many of you can relate to food being your favorite topic, but I think a lot less of you consider licensing as your favorite topic. But don't worry, we're going to make it as exciting as possible, and we're going to simplify it and reduce all the complexity that comes with Dynamics 365 licensing. But before we do that, I should tell you why food. Well, food is a universal experience, and it's something that every single person can relate to, and it's intuitive and very easy to understand. But this really started when I started cooking with my wife for the first time last year. I know a lot of couples, when they first get together, they struggle with cooking, but it was a real bonding moment for us, and it's something that we really enjoy. We do everything together, from sourcing the ingredients to chopping the vegetables, all the way to, of course, eating the delicious food that we make. At the same time, last year, I was studying for my Microsoft Azure certifications. And the Microsoft Azure certifications are very difficult. She asked me to tell her about some of those Azure concepts, and I had a hard time doing it. So what I decided to do instead is break it down into something that she would understand, which was food and Costco. So I started giving her an analogy of Costco, like the membership being an Azure subscription, the resources being like the clothing, pharmacy, rental cars, and tire departments, and then each of the aisles are the different categories within the Azure marketplace, and then restricted areas are like access controls. And when I broke it down like that, she actually understood it. And I was so excited, I ran straight to Missy and I started telling her about my analogy. And then we wanted to take it a step further, and we said, well, how can most of our clients benefit from a food-related analogy? We figured most of our clients are Dynamics 365 clients. We also figured that Dynamics licensing is the most complex licensing. So that's how the Gourmet Guide to the Dynamics 365 licensing was born. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Ridwan Yunya. I'm a licensing expert at Stoneridge Software. I've been here for about over a year now, but I made a career out of licensing. I have about 6 years of experience, and it's something that I really enjoy. I know a lot of people don't enjoy licensing, but I really like it. It's something I'm truly passionate about, and I'm certified in Microsoft 365, Azure, AI, Power Platform, and so on. Basically, all the major categories of Microsoft licensing. So on that note, I'll pass it to Missy to introduce herself.
Thank you, Ridwan. Like Ridwan said, my name is Missy Palmer. I'm a senior licensing specialist here at Stoneridge, and I've been in the Microsoft licensing CSP world for over 6. I've been with Stoneridge for 6 years, and prior to that, I worked at Microsoft for almost a decade. I too have a few certifications under my belt. They're not for the faint of heart, and they're in Microsoft Fundamentals and Microsoft 365 Fundamentals CRM. All right. Well, I hope you brought your appetite, because we are about to embark on a 6-course meal of licensing delights. We'll start with different licensing types, move on to base and attach licensing, savor team member and activity licenses, compare Dynamics on-prem versus cloud, enjoy Microsoft promotions, and finish with licensing assessments as the final course.
Thank you, Missy. So we're going to start with the different types of licenses. So there's 3 major types of licenses, and in your tenant, you probably will have a combination of all 3. You don't have to choose like one avenue or another, depending on different type of situation. Different types of licensing is more beneficial than the other. So let's start with user licenses. User licenses are the most typical licenses, and they're the easiest to understand. So you assign a license to a specific user, and now that user has the functionality that license provides. In terms of a food analogy, my siblings and I, we went to Universal Studios last year, and we got a VIP dining pass. Each of us got one, and this allowed us to eat at any of the restaurants at Universal Studios at any time. And that's very similar to the Dynamics 365 world. You assign each individual users a license, and they can use the functionality of that license. The second license is a device license. This license, I like to think of it as like a night shift and a day shift person, and they share a scanner gun. So, of course, you could license both of the night shift and day shift person with a user license. However, it may be more beneficial to license just that device. So, any of them could use that device, but only one person at a time. Think of this like your organization reserves a table for 6 at a specific restaurant for the rest of the year. So anybody within your organization can reserve or go to that table, but only one group at a time. With device licenses, it's not groups, it's individuals, but you get that concept. And then the last license is the tenant license. This license, for whatever reason, a lot of people struggle with, and it comes off as complex, but it's not. You basically get a license, and everybody within your tenant benefits from that license. So think of this as like a catering event for like a party or like a wedding. Everybody who's in that party or who's invited to that party, doesn't matter where they're sitting, they will be able to get the food. Very similar to Dynamics 365 licensing, as long as you have the license, every single person within your tenant benefits. So now let's get to the meat of it. So now imagine it's a very special day for you. Maybe it's Valentine's Day or your birthday or your anniversary, something really special. And you go out for dinner at a top tier restaurant. And if you're going to a top tier restaurant, you want to make sure you get the most out of your dining experience. And in order for you to do that, you need to purchase an entree, which is usually the most substantial and crucial part of your meal. And without an entree, your dining experience is incomplete. In the licensing world, this is called the base license. Basically, this license or this base license gives you the most functionality, but it is the most expensive part of your licensing package. There are other things when you're at a restaurant that you can use or that you can have on the side, such as mashed potatoes, fries, mac and cheese, salads, whatever it is, whatever is your favorite, to complement your entree. Usually these things are priced a lot lower and they complement your entree. In the licensing world, we call this an attached license. What they do is they complement the base license and they're priced a lot lower than the base license. If you're like me, I don't just get one side dish or add-on dish. I get the fries, the mashed potatoes, and the salad. Very similarly, in the Dynamics licensing world, you could get as many attached licenses that your base license allows. So now we're going to read a menu based on the same concept that we just talked about with the entrees and add-ons. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a Microsoft licensing menu here. And in bold, you'll see the base license or entrees. You can tell that that's the entree because it's bold and it's usually the more expensive license. And below each of these base licenses or entrees, there's add-ons. You can see under the Dynamics 365 Finance, There's a supply chain management add-on and a sales enterprise add-on. All of them with $1 which indicates that it's priced much lower. You can see each of these different base licenses has their own different combination of add-ons. And one unique thing that you will notice is under the Dynamics 365 Finance, there's a Sales Enterprise add-on, but the next line, Sales Enterprise, is a base or an entree. Well, that's actually by design. A license could be an entree or an add-on for a different base license, but it doesn't matter. It's only a pricing model or a bundle, and the functionality between a base and an attached license, there's no difference. So now that you know how to read a licensing menu, let's read the licensing matrix from Microsoft. So it works very similarly. On the left-hand side, there are base licenses. We could tell because they're priced a lot higher. So let's use Dynamics 365 Finance as our example. So the Dynamics 365 Finance license is about $210. If we look to the right, you could see that it has a bunch of add-on licenses that you could purchase for $20 or $30. The supply chain management is a license that I've indicated here. So if we want a finance-based license, but supply chain management attached, the supply chain management license would be about $30. So it's really easy. And if you understand this licensing matrix, you'll save a lot of cost and makes your licensing and your Dynamics 365 products much more integrated and a lot less costly. Speaking of costly, there are other licenses that you can use to reduce your spend on Dynamics 365 licensing. They're called the activity and the team member license. So first, we're going to do a food analogy. Let's say you're going out and you have two colleagues. One of your colleagues isn't so hungry and one of them have already ate. However, they don't want to miss out on the fun or FOMO. Maybe they could just come for drinks or appetizers. They'll still get a seat at the table. They will avoid the FOMO, and they could participate in the social aspects. So on the basic level, somebody can come for just drinks. To the colleague that is not that hungry, they could come and they could still get some food or an appetizer or finger food. They'll still get a seat at the table. They can be a part of the fun, and they don't have to get a full entree. What this person eats is limited and it's not the full experience, but it still gets you a seat at the table, and it's a step above getting drinks only. In the licensing world, the concept of team member and activity license is very similar. A team member license gives you read-only access to Dynamics 365. Of course, you get a few designated scenarios such as entering expenses or time, and you get this license for about $8 per user per month. So that's a pretty good deal. Then there's an activity license. It's a step above the team member license, but less than a full user. It's really great for approvers or the executive team, and it's a step above the team member license. The only thing to know about the activity license is that it's only available to F&O, cost about $50, and it's not available for Business Central or CRM. So let's do a quick comparison. As you can see from the Dynamics 365 licensing guide, the team member license gives you the least amount of rights, and then the operations activity gives you a little bit more, really catered to that executive C-suite, and then the finance gives you the whole shebang. So on that note, I'll pass it off to Missy.
All right. So we've eaten our meal. It's time to go home, but we still have some food left on the plate. What do you do with it? Well, if you're like me, you put it in a doggy bag and take it home to eat at a later date, or forget it's in the fridge until it starts to grow some unidentifiable something, and then you just throw it in the garbage, which usually isn't what ends up happening. Well, just like making the most of your leftovers while planning your next meal, as Dynamics GP reaches its end of life, ensure a smooth transition by evaluating your current system, exploring migration options, and developing a detailed transition plan. But just like food, Microsoft GP has a set expiration date when it reaches the end of life cycle. Similar to how leftover food won't get fresher, Microsoft GP will no longer receive updates or patches. So as of December 31st, 2029, GP won't receive product support and updates. And after April 30th of 2031, security patches will no longer continue. Leftover food can harbor bacteria. That's what the fuzzy mold thing is. And likewise, unsupported software can become vulnerable to security risks, and we don't want that. Leftovers might lose their taste appeal over time, while Microsoft GP will have limited or no technical support. And just as you would plan to consume or discard the leftovers, businesses need to plan for transition to new software solutions. Using outdated software can be inefficient. Much like consuming food past its prime, it isn't the best resource management. And just as you would look for fresh food, businesses need to look for alternative, supported software solutions. So what's the next move beyond GP? The choices are to choose a different Microsoft solution by staying on-prem or move to the cloud. This can be compared to a sit-down restaurant, which would be on-prem in this instance, or a fast food drive-through concept like the cloud. In this next section, we're going to review key differences between on-prem and cloud licenses to help maximize your dining experience. So on-prem licenses, again, similar to a sit-down restaurant. You own the software. It's concurrent users. And then there's this large upfront cost, which can be compared to like a capital expense. And capital expense is purchasing perpetual licenses for Microsoft products like Windows Server or SQL Server. It's typically considered a capital expense. These licenses are a one-time investment and are treated as a long-term asset on your balance sheet. Additional costs, such as hardware maintenance and upgrades, also fall under that CapEx model. Transitioning over to the fast food lane, which is the CSP licensing, you're renting the software essentially. It's a per user or per device license, so that one-to-one, not one-to-many. You pay for the licenses you use, so right sizing is important. And then there's that operational expense, or OpEx. Subscriptions for Microsoft Cloud services, such as Microsoft 365 or Azure, those are operational expenses, or compared to operational expenses. These are reoccurring costs that are paid monthly or annually, making them more flexible and easier to budget for. Cloud licensing aligns with that OpEx model because you're essentially paying for the service as you use it without the upfront investment in infrastructure. So with the on-prem side, you have the installation keys, the reg keys that you need to re-implement every time you purchase a new user or a new ISV module. Whereas the CSP licenses, those are managed through Enter ID, also known as Azure Active Directory. Server maintenance and hardware costs are also a part of that on-prem license. So you have the dishes that need to be washed and et cetera. There's a lot more kitchen work, right? Whereas on the CSP, that's software as a service, and Microsoft maintains that hardware. So I don't want to say you can throw it away, but there's no cleanup for you at the end. Microsoft handles all of that. So the choice between the CapEx and the OpEx options really depend on your organization's financial strategy, cash flow, and operational needs. Cloud solutions offer scalability and predictable costs, while on-premise solutions provide more control and long-term ownership. Now we need to talk about dessert because that's my favorite part of the meal. You've probably heard the phrase, have your cake and eat it too. It means wanting to enjoy two things that are often incompatible or mutually exclusive. Essentially, it's about wanting the best of both worlds while having to make any sacrifice, without having to make any sacrifice. So with the Bridge to Cloud 2 promotion, you actually can have your cake and eat it too. This promotion offers a 40% discount on Dynamics 365 licenses for 3 years. This allows you to stay up to date with your enhancements and continue your on-premise software while you transition to the cloud. So it's the dual use rights. You can be in the cloud and on-prem as you slowly transition. The promotion offers the best of both worlds because there is significant cost savings with that 40% discount and flexibility to transition at your own pace. You don't need to just jump to the cloud right away. You can do it over the course of that 3-year term. The Bridge to Cloud 2 promotion is specifically designed for customers who are currently on-prem and have plans to move to the cloud. And here are a few key details to keep in mind. The 40% promotion, lots of P's there, ends at the end of this year, so December 31st, 2025. Customers must purchase Dynamics 365 online licenses with the annualized value greater than or equal to their enhancement plan or EP renewal. So that maintenance plan that you would pay, it needs to equate to that in the cloud licensing. And this also means you may not have to pay anything additional beyond what you're already paying now. All user licenses, as well as team member licenses and activity licenses, qualify for this promotion. So that's really, really good to keep in mind also. This is a great opportunity to transition to the cloud with significant cost savings at 40% discount and minimal disruptions. The only caveat is clients must not have previously purchased the same online product via legacy CSP or those licenses under the New Commerce Experience or NCE licenses. This promotion is designed to help customers transition from on-premise Dynamics products to their cloud counterparts, and you can see that in this graph here. The only thing also to keep in mind is for finance and supply chain management base licenses, there is a minimum quantity requirement that applies for those. Let's chat about licensing assessments while keeping the food theme going. Imagine a chef looking over your kitchen. They ensure you have the necessary ingredients, check for alternatives that offer better value, make sure all health and safety regulations are in order, and provide expert recommendations. This chef reviews your current licenses to ensure you have everything you need, kind of like looking in your pantry to make sure you have all your ingredients. They look for alternatives that might offer better value. Similar to finding cost-effective ingredients. Why buy name brand when you can buy the off-brand and it suits the same purpose? Ensuring all health and safety regulations are met is like making sure your licensing is compliant with Microsoft's policies. Finally, the chef provides expert recommendations to optimize your setup, making sure your kitchen is in order. Just as a licensing assessment offers tailored advice to improve your licensing strategy. By conducting regular licensing assessments, you can ensure you're getting the best value, staying compliant, and optimizing your Dynamics 365 environment. Think of it as a chef regularly tasting their food dishes to make sure everything is perfectly seasoned and cooked to perfection.
Thank you so much, Missy. So that really brings us to the end of our presentation here, but Missy and I want to make sure that you get a ton of value from this session. So I hope you learned a lot today, but we want to go above and beyond, and we want to make sure that your licenses are all in order, your Dynamics 365 licenses are compliant, and if there's any cost optimization tips, we want to make sure that you are aware of them, and we want to offer our recommendations to you. We've been doing this for a long time. We've seen every single licensing scenarios. We know every trick in the book, and we want to make sure that every single person who has attended this session gets a free licensing assessment. So in order for you to redeem your free licensing assessment, all you have to do is scan this QR code. It only takes about 5 minutes of your time, and you get 30 minutes one-on-one with Missy or myself, and we'll help you through your licensing. I know QR codes or QR code menus are not that great. I know I really don't like them, but trust me, this QR code will really help you with all things with your licensing. Missy and I want to offer this as a courtesy to make sure every single person who attends this session is all set up with licensing. We know it's important to you, it's important to us, and we want to make sure that all things licensing are covered. We'll also put a link in the chat here as well to make sure that your licensing is all taken care of. So on that note, that brings us to the end of our session. I hope you learned a lot, and I thank every single person for attending. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Missy and I will be available to help. Thank you again, and take care.
Thank you.